There are some words, some phrases which seem to say something to us just by what they represent or evoke in our consciousness or our memory. I think one of those words is forever. Forever. That's a long time. So long we have trouble really comprehending it. Things don't normally last forever, even if we wish them to. My dog would love for his morning and afternoon walk to last forever. And he expresses that to me in his own way. You might have a favorite getaway, trip, or place to go where every time you're there, you wish it would last forever. Forever, in this way, is more of a chance to get away from the normal rather than a different way of understanding the normal. Perhaps it's easier when we think in terms of relationships. There might be a special person, someone you love deeply and you want to be with them forever, so that when you're not, you feel lost. There are people who care for us, support us, teach, and guide us. So when they're gone, it can feel like we're on our own. We wish to have them with us forever. But things don't seem to last forever, not in our experience. And while forever seems to elude us, we know what the longing for it is like, and yet it seems impossible to imagine. So because forever seems impossible, we tend to focus on today. What we can do or be or accomplish in the moment, the immediate moment, often takes the place of forever in our life. Never mind just planning for the short term. Today, right now, is our predominant focus as we do the calculation about whether we're living for now or living for forever. Admittedly, the church has often given a very muddled message about forever. Too many times the talk from the church about forever has tended to focus on the threat of punishment rather than endless delight, and that's been unfortunate. When we think we're more concerned with forever being about what someone thinks you deserve because they're angry with you, then it's hard to find any joy, peace, and love in the message of God with us. And the message of God with us is, if anything, about joy, peace, and love forever. That's why Jesus came to be with us in human form, not to condemn the world, but so that the world might find itself brought closer in love to God. That's what we hear today when Jesus stands on that level ground, eye to eye, face to face with the disciples. But we're hearing it too. We're a part of this group of disciples. In this moment, in this right now, we can find ourselves in that assembled crowd. Jesus draws us intimately inside the group of his followers. We belong to this community of faith he gathers to teach. And what we hear in this teaching from Jesus, which echoes through the millennia, is an invitation to live into the way of life we call forever. And then Jesus tells us how that happens. You find yourself blessed because your today, your right now, can be transformed as you find yourself belonging with God forever. That list of opening identifiers, the poor, the hungry, those who weep, they would probably account for most of the known world in Jesus' day. But Jesus isn't saying that any of these things are desirable. There's nothing virtuous in being poor or hungry or weeping. Rather, he's saying that God's kingdom is fully populated, made the forever that it is, because it's grounded on the people who've been on the margins, on the wrong side of the ledger, on the outs. And it's not just that they're in the kingdom, they're at the very heart of the kingdom. They're in the heart of God. It's a reversal of life today. It's a reversal of now. It's forever. But there's more. Jesus goes on to those who are hated, those who are excluded, those reviled and defamed on account of Jesus. This also can include us, those who follow Jesus and find rejection just as Jesus is rejected. He's drawing us ever closer to himself, associating us and our life with his life. It's his life forever marked and marred by rejection, but forever with God. And then Jesus turns everything about our thinking about today, right now, on its head and teaches us how the now will become a forever. He does that. He gets our attention by this list of woes. These woes are all about the reversal of what's occurring now, today. Today isn't enough, Jesus is saying, when there's a forever to focus on. Do you want your life to be centered on today or on forever? Those woes, as stark as they can be, aren't threats or rejections or punishment. They're a call to find yourself within God's kingdom. So they all center on another word that's clearly meant to be evocative, if not provocative. That word is enemy. It's easy to create enemies. It's easy to name and hate enemies. Enemies are something we form and create for today. And so God asks us to transform that part of ourself from an enemy today into love forever. There's a process for this to happen, which you won't be surprised to hear me say Sam Wells writes about in his book, Love, Mercy. For forgiveness to happen, harm needs to cease. Truth needs to be told. Apology needs to be made. Trust needs to be established. Recompense needs to be attempted. There are real differences, real disparities, which the Beatitudes acknowledge. The Beatitudes are the beginning of the process of leveling the field so that forgiveness can lead to reconciliation. The point of all of this is not that our differences become ignored, but become transformed. We transform our differences away from conflict, away from a need to win with proper humiliation involved for the loser, so that a cycle of bitterness and resentment ceases. The win-lose binary, which is the focus of a life lived for today, depletes the victor and vanquished alike. In short, everyone emerges impoverished when there are only winners and losers. What Jesus gives us and why we hear these Beatitudes on All Saints is to form our own sense of identity, which includes a longer-term vision for community, not just ourselves. It starts with the question, what kind of person do I want to be? And leads to a greater question, whom and whose am I? Jesus is giving these Beatitudes to his disciples to form a community which will be defined and identified by how they live and act and communicate them. Today, we don't hear them as a message of the past, but the message of today, a today which leads into forever. There's not some golden, perfect past to which we all hope to return. The path is forward, towards the consummation of all things into God, when the differences of today become the relationships of forever. Jesus shows us forever. We hear these Beatitudes on All Saints because it's not simply the instruction of a master to a student. We hear them because Jesus lives them. The list of identifiers is his life. It's what happens to him. The differences between Jesus and those who considered themselves his enemy leave him poor, hungry, weeping, hated, excluded, and defamed. He is whipped and abused and humiliated. And at every moment on that sad and lamentable day, he didn't respond with an eye for an eye, with anger for anger, with punishment or violence. He responded with a love, a self-giving love summed up in the words that could be said for all of us at our worst moments. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. All Saints is when we remember what we're doing and whom we're doing it with Jesus, with people we read about who lived out these Beatitudes and where they went and whom they met, with family and friends and enemies. Jesus invites us to follow and find our life transformed, our today transformed into forever. This life, this journey, isn't one we do alone, because when we do, we usually get in our own way. We get lost or we just mess it up. We're not meant to do this on our own, and we don't have to. For each of us who laugh, we can listen to those who weep. For each of us full, we can assist someone hungry. For all who are rich, we can share with those who are poor. That's what saints are, the people who followed Jesus in living and giving and trying to love forever, when hate, when creating an enemy for today is so much easier.